Hello, Lisa here. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to Auntie Haul number 3. So today I'm going to be talking about a pile of decks as usual for my Auntie hauls. I have my trusty laundry basket with a bunch of things from my collection and things that are going to be leaving my collection, and I'm really excited to dive in, so we're just gonna get started. My personal goal for today's video is to keep it under 30 minutes. Here's hoping, but let me get started. So the first category of my Auntie haul is decks I regret purchasing. And this is definitely an interesting category for me to dive into because most of the time I don't really truly regret my purchases. Most of the time I enjoy the time that I have with the decks that I buy, even if they do end up leaving my collection. But there's still an element of like, okay, maybe this wasn't the best choice for me personally. So I'm gonna dive in. Some of these decks I really enjoyed for a time and just don't anymore. The first one I want to talk about is the Rebel deck. Now this is a really fun Oracle. Heads up, there is some swearing, like a lot of swearing in this deck. So if you're sensitive or you're watching at work or whatever, then just consider this your warning. One of the things that I found, first of all, can we talk about the edging I did on this deck? First of all, it's amazing because it's multicolored. But second of all, it also came off a little bit messy. So here's what the back of the cards look like. You can kind of see where the edging bled a little bit. It doesn't really bother me that much. Hopefully somebody will still want it. I'd hate for it to go completely to waste, but I'm going to be listing some of these decks that are leaving my collection. I'll be maybe doing a video about those separately, or I don't know. We'll see. But the thing about this deck, I'm going to hold them up in a group so my camera can get a grip. You have a message on the front and then you flip it over and there's another message on the back. There's a ton of swearing. This deck sort of is a calling you out kind of deck, and I really did enjoy it for a time. And then I realized that even though it's uplifting in its own special way, it was just kind of annoying me a little bit. It just felt sometimes overly harsh, and I'll admit, I like me some fluff in my decks. I like a little bit of that calling you out to come with a little bit of softness at the same time, which is just my personality, right? But this is super fun, and there is several versions of this now. So there's one of these for couples. There's also one for, like, there's a game version, I think. You can view that one on Tara at Kitten Weights and Tarot's channel. She has done some of her weekly readings, I think, with this deck, or with the game version of this deck, and it was super cute, actually. But it's just not one that I ever reach for, and I'm sure that it's because it's just a little bit too blunt for me. But I really enjoyed it for a time. Like, there was a time when I was all about this deck. So some of this is just a taste change kind of thing for me personally, but it's really unique. It's really fun. I don't think there's a lot out there in the sort of Oracle or New Agey world that has this kind of a tone. So if this is up your alley, check it out. I think you can get it right from their website. I think it's rebeldeck.com. Don't quote me on that. I don't see the website right on the box, but oh wait, actually it's on the cards. Yep, rebeldeck.com. But I think these are also available on like Amazon and stuff now. So love it, not for me anymore. But the one that I reach for instead and absolutely adore, and I moved it into my Rebel Decks emoji bag, is my Affirmators deck. So this deck comes like in a box like this, which is super unreliable. Like this, the drawer thing, just like, you have to put it in a bag or store it this way. Because if you put it in your shelf and then you pick it up, it's gonna open up. Anyway, sturdy box though, and the cardstock on these is not super awesome, but there is a little ribbon to lift the cards out, which is nice. These ones have some really fantastic messages. I love the illustrations. I think they're really cute. Some of them don't have any illustrations like that one, but most of them have these cute little illustrations and these messages. It's very much an affirmator, or of course it's an affirmator. It's a very affirmation-based deck with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek humor, so you still get a bit of that sassiness that the Rebel deck has, but it's just a little softer. I also actually have the journal that contains all of these same images and messages, along with some guided journal prompts to use alongside of it, and I really enjoy using the journal with the deck when I'm using the deck in my rotation. But love this, and I've actually pre-ordered the Affirmators Tarot, which has just been released or is about to be released, at least in Canada. So I am looking forward to getting to know that deck as well. But this is super fun. This is what the backs look like. right up my alley. This is a great mood lifter, but it's also really good at calling you on your crap, just in a less blunt way. So this is what I like to use instead. The next thing that I want to talk about that I regret, and this one was tough. I really sat on the fence with this one for a while, and I haven't had it in my collection very long, maybe like 5 or 6 months at the most, and it is the Oracle of Mystical Moments by Katrin Wellstein. And I'm sure I can like hear right now people who are watching this video, even though it's in the future, audibly gasping at the fact that I'm not a huge fan of this deck. But I have to say, aesthetically, this deck is beautiful. The artwork is stunning. The box is really nice. This is a US Games publication, and I know I've said it a lot, but US Games has been knocking it out of the park with deck quality. The boxes have been really nice on all of their recent publications. The cardstock is amazing. I just can't. So this comes in a really nice, sturdy 2-piece box. The little guidebook is beautifully written, and it looks like it's also written by Katrin Wellstein. You get a nice little entry for each card, and the entries are really beautiful. It's just that when it comes to Oracle decks, for me personally, I really want whatever text is on the card to be enough, because I very rarely want to really pour myself into a Oracle deck guidebook. Sometimes I do, but a lot of times, I don't know why it's not like focusing on her. There we go. So, secrets. Some of the keywords are wonderful intuitively, and some of them are ones that I'm like, huh? So like this one, my home is my castle, that makes sense. Moon dance, less so. I mean, I could definitely find ways to jump off of that intuitively, especially with this imagery. And it's a really inspiring deck from an artistic standpoint, and it's almost a little tough for me to imagine letting this one go because it's so dang beautiful. But then I get cards like Mermaid's Love. And again, there's places I could go with that card, but for whatever reason, I don't get excited to reach for it, even though it's so beautiful, because some of the keywords just don't jive with me. And that is a recurring theme in decks that I end up not enjoying working with, is it has to do with the keywords and the titles. They're so important to me because I usually use a combination of the keyword and the art as a jumping off point for how I'm going to read with it. Oh my god, it's 7 minutes and I'm only 2 decks in. This is probably not going to be a 30-minute video. Who am I kidding? It's like my personal challenge to myself. Oh, but I have edged this deck, I will say. You can probably barely tell, but these are the backs, and the edges are like the exact same color. So that was pretty satisfying. But yeah, this is one that I'm probably going to be rehoming because I just don't find myself excited to reach for it. But what I do think I'm going to be reaching for instead when I'm wanting to work with something that's got this kind of dreamy, otherworldly, artistic quality to it is the Queen of the Moon Oracle by Stacey DeMarco. So this one is, I will say the art is different. I'm not saying the art is the same. But this art also has a bit of that dreamy, otherworldly quality to it. There's some really interesting, non-realistic artistic depictions in here that just give me so much to work with intuitively, and the titles are amazing, and I have the added layer of the moon phases and the different monthly moons to work with if I want to add that extra layer of meaning to the readings I do with this deck as well. I really think that this has got a similar feel artistically, even though it is a different art style. And I just really love it. I'm super happy that I scooped this one up. And when I'm wanting that sort of dreamy art, this is what I will be reaching for instead. And I do think between the two, this one for me, just it checks all of the boxes I want an Oracle deck to check. This is what the backs look like. And I have not edged it yet, but I probably will at some point. Maybe put some gold on it since these moon phases on the back are kind of that yellowy color. The guidebook, this is a Rockpool Publishing, which their stuff is also amazing. You get little color thumbnails of the card, as well as a really wonderful description and divinatory meaning, including a little affirmation should you want to work with that, which I really appreciate. And it even mentions a companion stone that you can work with, so there's a layer of crystal medicine to this deck as well. It just has a lot of layers, and I love that. So this is the one that I am all about instead. third deck that I regret purchasing I have recently talked about on my channel, and that is the Wizard's Tarot. So this copy I have here with its companion book has found a new home. I'm going to be shipping it off probably right after I film this video, actually. The guidebook is really good, and I was lucky to find a guidebook separately from the deck, because the guidebook version, or the version of this deck that came with this full-size guidebook, has been out of print for much longer than the version of this deck that was just the cards. But the guidebook is really good. It's by Corinne Kenner, and every major arcana is basically themed after an instructor, like a professor at a place called Mandrake Academy. It's a very wizard school kind of vibe. And so each professor of each different subject, which is in the major arcana, through the whole major arcana, has something a little extra to share with you. So you have the divinatory meaning, but you also have some extra little things to learn through here, whether it be astrology, whether it be, I think there's a bit in here on Kabbalah. There's just color magic. There's just some really cool things in here. Transfiguration. There's the tower has some stuff on, or the devil card is called the Dark Lord in here and has some interesting stuff in it. There's just a lot of fun things in the guidebook, which is what I was really excited for. But the actual deck itself, the artwork just isn't for me, and I tried, I really tried. But this is what the backs look like. This deck would look gorgeous edged in gold. Somebody asked me that when I talked about this deck recently, but there's something about this artwork just doesn't speak to me. This card is gorgeous though. It's not quite for me. And I think nowadays I really stray away from decks that look where the faces or the people look a little too photorealistic. So this is definitely one that just did not speak to me. Oops, sorry about any glare. That's a gorgeous 8 of Wands. So yeah, I think that the art is fine, and I really like that you can really see the elements through the minors. There's a lot to love about this deck. It definitely not for me. So instead, and this one is probably a really easy one to guess that I reach for instead, I reach for my Harry Potter Tarot, which I keep in this really fun witchy bag. And this one is independent. Let me just pull there's some title cards I need to get out of the way. There we go. So the artist of this deck is Eleanor Piper, or Pieper. I don't know how you say her name. I think it's Piper though. And she is the same artist behind the, oh, what's it called? I'm blanking on the name. It's really modern. New Era Elements. There it is. I knew it would come into my brain eventually. So she's the artist behind the New Era Elements, which is mass produced as a tarot deck, but this, because it is fan art, is not as easy to get a hold of. You do need to contact Eleanor one-on-one through her DeviantArt account to request a copy of this deck. But I will just show you the art because it's pretty amazing. Now this is a Thoth influenced deck. It's not like true to Thoth. It's also not true to Rider-Waite-Smith. It kind of has elements of both. Some of the keywords are Thoth, some are not quite what the keywords would be on the original Aleister Crowley deck. There's a lot of really wonderful symbolism through this deck, including some really wonderful astrology. And this is my favorite deck to work with when I'm working with Corinne Kenner, the same author who wrote the Wizard's Tarot. She has a book called Tarot and Astrology. And in fact, there is a couple of charts and things that I found in the Wizard's Tarot that are also in her Tarot and Astrology book. So that's kind of fun. But this was the deck that I actually worked with when I was working with that book, because I could see for even the minors what the astrology was, because the symbols are on the card. Usually you would have the planet at the top, like here you have Saturn at the top, and then at the bottom somewhere would be the sign that it's in. Okay, so here it's Libra, and you can see it on this plate. So this is Saturn in Libra, this card, which is the 3 of Cups. So there's just a lot to dig into here, and if you really love Harry Potter, this is wonderful just for the extra layers of meaning and story that you can pull into. It doesn't come with a guidebook, but it does come with a PDF, I guess, guidebook that you can download and read, but it's just really, really fantastic. So I love this, and it's definitely what I reach for when I want a little bit of that wizardy magic. Next, we are on to a new category. So the next category is things I'm not gonna buy that are mass market. So decks I'm not gonna buy, mass market. The first one of those is the Magic of You Oracle. A lot of people have been talking about this one recently. I will throw up some images either there or there. We'll see where they fit best. But that deck looks really, really beautiful, and thematically it is right up my alley. But I have to say, after having watched a few walkthroughs, the sticking point for me has to do with the words that they use. So a lot of them are, I think they're made up words, or again, it's an issue with the titles. The artwork is stunning, the theme of the deck is stunning. From what I understand, the information in the guidebook is beautiful and really wonderful for self-love and self-worth work. So again, right up my alley. But it's those dang titles. It's just such a barrier for me if they don't resonate with me directly. I don't want to have to look them up. I will almost always look them up anyway. I just want to be able to work with the deck more off the cuff, and when those titles don't resonate, it just doesn't hit right for me. But the deck that I will work with instead is an oldie but a goodie in my collection, the Self-Love Oracle by Janet Cui. I think that you can now get this deck on Etsy from the artist herself. I ordered it from her website. I believe she's in, I want to say she's in like Singapore, but I could be getting that wrong. I remember it did come from overseas, from a country in Asia. I just can't remember which one. But this artwork, first of all, is beautiful. The guidebook, it's in a sturdy 2-piece box. The guidebook is a little staple bound, but kind of a chunky guy here. And you get a really nice page for every single card with a meaning, but it's called the Self-Love Oracle, and it totally delivers. It's edged in a silver. This is what the backs look like. The only complaint I would say I have about this deck is that some of the cards do go landscape on me, but I think there's only a couple. The messages are really beautiful. Yeah, here's one here. The messages are really, really beautiful. They're very self-love and self-worth themed, so they're beautiful for that kind of work. And this just fits the bill for me when it comes to an oracle deck that's going to really assist in that part of my path. So this is the one I reach for. I love it. I don't know that I've done a full like flip through or walkthrough of this deck, but if you want to see that, or if you want to see that on any of the decks I've mentioned here, let me know and I will be happy to put it on my list. Full disclosure, I tell you guys, I will totally take requests, but my list is really long and I keep meaning to get to more of them, and it's just slow for me to get through my list. But I will always add it to the list, and I will definitely get to it at some point. I just don't promise when. But let's move on. So another deck that I've been seeing around the YouTubes and the Instagrams is called, I'm looking at my notes here, the Ancient Feminine Wisdom of Goddesses and Heroines deck. And I think I saw this first on Julie Peekaboo Rose's channel, but I'm not 100% sure. It looks absolutely beautiful. I just know that I've got a Divine Feminine deck that I'm so head over heels with that I can't pull the trigger on another one right now. And the one that I love in my current collection is the Divine Feminine Oracle by Megan Watterson and Lisbeth Cheever-Gesseman. I did not think I was gonna like this deck. I looked at it a bunch of times, and then I read the book, the Mary Magdalene, spacing on the title, Mary Magdalene Revealed by Megan Watterson, and I suddenly understood, and it all made sense, and ever since then I've just been loving it. I work with this deck as part of my spiritual practice, so I pull a new Divine Feminine archetype every full moon, and I work with that archetype for that full moon cycle. The artwork is really gorgeous. The deck is really beautifully smooth matte, really nice cardstock. That's what the backs look like. I may eventually edge this deck, but I'm hesitant to do anything that may bleed over to the fronts because they are borderless. So I haven't done that yet. I just think this deck is so beautifully put together with such a variety of archetypes from so many different cultures and parts of the world. I just really appreciate that diversity and the respect that Megan brings to talking about each of these different archetypes and what they have to offer or teach you. And I think there's a really loving and motherly energy to this deck that I really appreciate. And I can't get enough of it. I really, really do love it. And I would be hard pressed to find something I love more. This deck actually replaced the Goddess Oracle by Sophia Marashinsky and Rana Janto in my full moon practice, but I will be still working with that other deck. I still love the other one, but this one's got more than just goddesses. It's got a bunch of different divine feminine. And look at this generously chunky guidebook. This one is a Hay House publication, and they have been putting out some really beautiful stuff lately. When they put out a matte deck in a 2-piece box, I am all about it. Oh my God, it's 20 minutes. How? How did I do that? Anyway, it's fine. It's fine. I need to resign myself to the fact that this anti-haul series is just gonna be long videos. It is what it is, folks. Anyways, so that is what I will reach for instead of the other deck with the really long name, Ancient Goddesses and Feminine, Ancient Feminine Wisdom and of Goddesses and Heroines. Yeah, that's a really long name. It's a really long name. All right, so that brings us to the next category, which is decks I'm not gonna buy that are independent. So the first of these that I was really drawn to, I watched it throughout its Kickstarter campaign. It is now out and available, and that is the Field Tarot. I've watched so many people talk about and show images of this deck, and it's really beautiful, but I've learned kind of the hard way that some of the more sparse artwork decks, the ones with more clean and simple imagery, just doesn't give me enough to get really and truly excited. What I do really love about looking at that deck when I see people doing flip throughs is the artwork is so, it's got this sort of almost airy vibe to it in the color scheme. There's a lot of sort of, if I remember correctly, it just feels very clean and open. And when I think of decks in my collection that have that same kind of clean and crisp feel, I always think of the same one first, and that is my beloved Fountain Tarot. The Fountain Tarot it won my deck knockouts, which was one of the first collection type videos that I ever did on my channel. I should do a new one for like 2019 or 2020. I should do a new one. That was a really fun video series to do. But this is the backs. This is the side. It's got this really pretty silver gilding. And then this has that sort of more open, clean, cooler colors kind of feel to it. But there's a lot more imagery for me to work with and play with in this deck. Oh, looking at the images now makes me just want to pull this out. This would be a wonderful wintertime deck, like January, when you're just with all the snow and the ice. I don't know, some people have actually said that this deck feels cold to them. It doesn't feel cold to me. It feels neutral. In fact, it's one of my most neutral feeling decks and one of my favorites for getting a reading that doesn't feel like it's biased, either a reading, sometimes we want a reading that goes right to the heart, sometimes we want a reading that goes right to the head, and I feel like this reading is right in the middle. It's just very balanced in its energy. And I really appreciate that about this deck. So I love this one. I love this box style that it's in too. I'm just gonna show you guys, put the cards in. It's got a ribbon so you can, I'm just fussing with the deck, hold on. Uno momento, por favor. Why? Okay, it's not usually this hard to work with. Okay, there we go. It's got like a little ribbon here, and it's the kind that opens this way, so it wraps all the way around, and then it's magnetic. I don't know, look at this holographic. Oh, I love it. But I don't know why we don't have more decks with boxes like this, because this is brilliant. I don't know if these are actually flimsier over time because of all the opening and closing, but it's so nice because there's no multiple parts I have to fuss with. I just like open it up. There's my deck, and it's super convenient. I love this box style. Has to be a firm favorite. And I have it in a pretty silver peggy bag, one of her originals. And I just love it. I love this deck. I will always love this deck. I can't imagine ever being tired of this deck. It's just one of those like ones that will just always be with me. So the next independent deck that I'm not gonna buy is, and I kind of cheated on this one, but it is the mini Roots and Wings Oracle in a Tin. I saw the mini version of this deck on Abundant Abundant Life Tarot, Kim's channel. I want to say, I hope I didn't get her channel name wrong. It seems right in my head. I'm like picturing the channel name, I'm picturing her beautiful face. I'm sure that's it. I will link it down below if I remember to do that when I'm editing this video. Fingers crossed. But she showed an unboxing of this mini deck in a tin, and I fell head over heels with the artwork, and I was this close to buying the mini version because I love me a mini deck. But then I figured out when I was reading the listing that the mini version of the deck has less cards than the full size, and greedy me could not take less cards. I think it's like 40 something in the mini and 60 something in the full size. So what I love instead, because this is a beautiful Oracle deck, is the full size Roots and Wings. See what I mean? I kind of cheated. But I did purchase this deck, and I'm so happy that I did. Here is what the sort of title, and I think you can get this image, I think this image is on the tin, possibly on the box if you get it in a box. I ordered my deck without a box or a tin or anything like that because, or a bag, because of course I wanted a Peggy bag for it. So Peggy made me this one, which I think is really beautiful, match for the backs. Let me show you this deck. It is probably now one of my top, well, it's for sure one of my top 5, and it's probably in my top 2 or 3 now for Oracle decks. It is so beautiful. It's got that rose petal finish that my Brady Tarot has and my Luminous Void Tarot has. Other decks that have this finish, I believe, are the True Black Tarot, but I don't own that one, so can't confirm, but I have heard that it's rose petal. And I know that there's others too, but I am a sucker for this card finish. It feels so good. It's a little annoying when you're shuffling because the cards like to, it's hard to kind of get them back together when you're rifling, but the cardstock itself has like good sturdiness but good bend to it. It's probably like a 330 GSM, and the colors are fantastic. I love the feel of this deck. This deck will look gorgeous next to the Luminous Void Tarot, which is totally a deck I will pair with it. It's really stunning. The keywords are brilliant. The images give me so much to work with intuitively. It's just one of those decks that gets me and that I get. I love this vulnerability card. Hopefully they're in focus. I just realized I wasn't blocking my face enough. Uh-oh. Card down. What was that one? Humility. Oh, goodness. I love that card. I could like show you these images all dang day, but I won't, because then we won't ever finish this video. But it also comes with this really beautiful, so the title card has on the back of it a spread, and then the artist card, I guess it's not really an artist card, but the card that talks about how to use the deck, on the back of it is the text for what each of these spread positions is and how to use this. So you've always got a spread with your deck, which I think is super fun. I've used that spread. It's a great spread. And then instead of a book, and this to me also speaks to really good keywords when you don't need a lot of text to describe or explain what the card is trying to say, because each keyword is listed on this fold out brochure that comes with it. And this is like a sturdy paper, like thick paper. It's not like something super flimsy that's going to shred on you, but it only needs a couple of sentences for each card, which to me means that the artwork and the keywords really speak for themselves. I love this deck like a lot. So I haven't been able to bring myself to buy the tin because I don't want to give up any of the cards. They're all really, really wonderfully done, but yeah, I really like this deck. Roots and Wings Oracle, so good. So let's see, that's going to bring us to our next category, which is decks I'm not going to buy that are currently in pre-order status. So let's talk about the Starseed Oracle. This is another Oracle deck that I believe the author is Rebecca Campbell again. I might be wrong on that. If so, I'll put some text somewhere on the screen correcting myself. But the artist is Danielle Noel, the artist behind the Moonchild Tarot, which I love, the the Starchild Tarot, and the Work Your Light Oracle. Danielle Noel's artwork is absolutely beautiful, and it's often got these really soft pinks and purples, and I'm so attracted to her artwork in general. But just the name of that Oracle deck has thrown me off. I don't consider myself somebody who particularly identifies with that sort of starseed or intergalactic-y kind of energy. So I don't often find myself drawn towards decks that have that space theme, or and there is even a bit of that woven into the Star Child Tarot and the Moonchild Tarot, but with those decks I find that it's a little bit more toned down, particularly in the Moonchild Tarot. That one feels a lot more grounded to me. But I just couldn't get on board with the Starseed Oracle, even though from everything I've seen of the preview images, the artwork looks like it's going to be so beautiful. So if you identify with that sort of stuff, if that's really just like, what's the word I'm looking for? If that's up your alley, then don't sleep on it because it looks like it's going to be gorgeous. But here's what I reach for instead. My Work Your Light Oracle. This one I do love. There is a few cards in here that sort of stretch my comfort zone when it comes to some of that intergalactic-y kind of energy, because there are a few cards in here that definitely do go there. Really nice box. Another Hay House, I believe. Yes, this is another Hay House. This one is a Rebecca Campbell, and here right at the bottom we have one that I'm gonna mention. So here's the backs. They're so pretty. The pink roses and the light blue, I love it. Oh, look, it matches my nails. But there is a couple cards like this one, Pleiades, but I love the guidebook entry for this card. And what I love about this deck also is that you have the title and then you have subtext. So it says Pleiades and I'm like, I don't know what that means. But then it says double mission, channeling and uplifting humanity. And I'm like, okay, I can get on board. You've given me enough text there to work with. Break the chain. There's some really fantastic cards and really great messages in this deck, so it makes it really easy to read intuitively. It makes it really easy to have something to meditate on. This is beautiful for path working, as Danielle Noel's art tends to be, just really pulls you in. Some of that is the perspective that it seems like she uses, where you get this feeling of like you're literally looking down this like path or walkway. Or you're looking into stairs, or you're looking into a portal, or here this like opening of doors, oh, with this lightning at the top. Like, her artwork is just really stunning, and it's really unique, and it's instantly identifiable as her artwork, which I think is really special. And I just really like working with this one. This is the deck I obviously work with right next to my Moonchild Tarot, so I really, really love that. I also love when deck creators put nice little messages in the box. So there's the bottom of the box. There's the top of the box. I love that. It's such a nice touch. It's like a happy little surprise when you lift the book or the deck out of the box. I just love it. When we're talking about the guidebook for this one, I have to say Rebecca Campbell really brought it with these messages. It's so wonderful. It's not too much. You get about 1.5 to 2 pages for every single card. You get a black and white thumbnail. You get kind of a subtext that gets right to the point, and you also have a work your light action for every card, and I really think that's super fun. It gives you something to really focus on, and an action step for me is just a really important part of working with decks. I really like to take, even when I do my client readings, I like to give my clients journal prompts, something to sort of take forward into their personal work, so that it's not just information coming in, there's like something being done with that information. And so this deck does a beautiful job of giving you all you need to do all of that, and I love it. Love it. All right, so next we have another deck that is out in pre-order status right now. This is these were both mass market, by the way. The Starseed Oracle is mass market. The other one that is in pre-order status right now is the Wizard's Tarot, not the one I've already talked about, but one that is coming out by Barbara Moore, and the artist is Mieki Janssens, and I want to say that Mieki, I'm probably saying her name totally wrong. I think she's the same artist behind no, I think I'm mixing that up. I'm not going to make any guesses, but I've seen the name before. I think she's illustrated other decks. But this deck looks like it's going to be really beautiful. It feels to me very fresh and modern with that wizard vibe all the way through. Very different than the Wizard's Tarot by Corinne Kenner. It just has a feeling of being fresh and exciting, and I really was this close to thinking I wanted it, and then I was like, no, I'm not gonna reach for it. And the reason I'm not gonna reach for it is because of what I love from my own collection even better, and that is the Everyday Witch Tarot by Deborah Blake, and the art is by Elizabeth Alba. Now, I'm a big fan of Deborah Blake's writing, for starters. I have a couple of her books. I have Everyday Witchcraft. I have the Everyday Witchcraft one that is, I forget what it's called, but it's like literally for every day. So it's got a little bit of magic you could do every single day of the calendar year, and it's dated. And then I also have her Everyday Rituals book, I believe. She's got a very approachable way of writing that just feels really fresh and nice. I first watched or learned about this deck on Imogen Walters' channel. It's one of her most popular videos, I think. And her walkthrough of this deck was so completely charming that I was sold right away. I was like, yes, where do I sign up for this adorable deck? I love the guidebook. This was when Llewellyn was first switching over to these color guidebooks with sturdy boxes. You get really wonderful write-up for every single card. This would be a wonderful deck for a beginner to tarot because there's fantastic information, and the way the cards are depicted just makes this such an approachable way to work with the tarot. And I just know so many people who have and love this deck. Here's what the backs look like. And I edged mine in sort of a matching, sort of almost denim-y sort of blue. So I'm pretty happy with that. You can tell I've used this a lot since I edged it because my edging is kind of worn. This is borderless. It's standard Llewellyn cardstock, so it's a little on the thin side, but it's not the super glossy cardstock that they've been coming out with recently. It's a little bit more satin than that. What is that one? The Judgment card? Yeah. These cards are so great, and I will say that the art style of the Wizard's Tarot and the sort of aesthetic of this sort of modern but still witchy, this feels so similar. It's almost like the Wizard's Tarot is the wizard version of this deck, which may be completely unfair because I believe it's a different artist and a different author. And I have to say, it takes a lot for me to say no to a deck that Barbara Moore has written the guidebook for, because I adore all of her guidebooks. They are so good. But I just knew that that deck would be neglected while I worked with this one instead. So this is really wonderful. It's great for clients because it's very relatable. Like this Nine of Swords is so relatable. It's just a very, I keep saying approachable. That's what I think of when I think of this deck. Some people are a little turned off by all the silly pointed hats and all that stuff, but I love it. It's just like, to me, a modern witch, these people, most of these people just remind me of modern witches, and the hats are almost just a reminder that they're modern. Like the hats and the clothes are kind of like a reminder that they're witchy, even though they're in everyday life. And some of these cards, time period wise, seem to go a little bit older. I love this Four of Swords with the cobwebs present in there, and you're like, okay, she might be resting a little long. I mean, they're just beautiful for reading intuitively. And the way that this art is depicting some of the cards, it just makes it so wonderful as a reader to be able to peel away the layers. So pretty excited about that. Still on the fence about the coordinating oracle deck. Kind of waiting for some of my favorite YouTubers, I'm looking at you, Julie, to tell me how it worked out for them, because I'm a little on the fence and I love this a lot, but I don't, and I was a hardcore fan excited for the oracle deck to come out, but something about it, I'm just not sure yet. So, but I do love this. And so I had to say no to the Wizard's Tarot because I know it would be neglected as long as I have this in my possession, which I better for a very long time because it's definitely a favorite. All right, what's up next? I think, oh, I lost my page in my notes, you guys. There it is, okay. So next up is Kickstarters I didn't back. This one is always so ouchy to me because there's a part of me that just wants to support all of the Kickstarters because people are putting out some incredible stuff. I'm trying to sort of reel myself back in a little bit lately though, and really only jump on the Kickstarters that I feel like I want to be first in line for. I'm that confident that it's going to be a good fit for me. And lately, a lot of the stuff I'm like, let me wait and see once it comes out. Let me wait and see once I see a walkthrough of somebody else's. Let me just wait and see how it all, when it comes out and so forth. Because a lot of the decks that fully fund, some of the decks I'm about to talk about actually, funded pretty quickly. And at least one of them did. The other one I'm not sure about, but I know the first one funded very quickly, totally I'm just going to tell you what it is instead of just babbling. Let me have a sip of water. This is a long video. So this one is the Cosmic Cycles Tarot. I really like it. I had a couple things come up though when I was reviewing the Kickstarter campaign. I noticed that the majority of the art wasn't done, and given the fact that at the time I'm filming this video, I am still still waiting for my last unicorn tarot that Geekify is putting out. And that is probably one of the first Kickstarters I ever backed. And I backed it in late summer of 2017. I'm a little nervous now backing some Kickstarters if the art is not either mostly completed or fully completed by the time they launch their campaign, because art is one of the places where you can have the most delays. If, you know, an artist is an artist, right? Sometimes they really do need more time to make their vision come to life, and I completely respect that. I'm just not sure I'm always capable of being as patient as I need to be. With the Cosmic Cycles Tarot, I noticed that during the campaign they were offering a sort of standard edition of the deck and then an upgraded edition of the deck. And I think that was cool that they did that, but it was very expensive for me to back and have it shipped into Canada. And that combined with the fact that I really would have wanted the limited edition version, which had the nicer cardstock and that sort of thing. And I wasn't super fond of how they handled stretch goals. It just kind of felt like they were protecting that limited edition version, and it just kind of gave me some funny vibes. That combined with the fact that the art wasn't done enough for me to feel confident is what stopped me from pulling the trigger. But they massively overfunded, and I'm hoping to see some walkthroughs and flip-throughs when that deck is available, and then make a decision then on whether I'd like to pick up a copy. I've noticed that most Kickstarters, as long as they fund and they fund well, most creators do purchase extra copies, and there's often a window where you can order the deck after the Kickstarter period is over if you're still interested, either once it's all the way out or once they've shipped all their Kickstarters and they have some extras. Sometimes there's an opportunity then. And I also had a feeling that this deck may, once the art is fully completed, get picked up by mass market. I could be totally wrong, but it just seems like a very mass marketable deck. So we'll see. But the art is beautiful and it's so tempting. But I've talked about it a lot. Let's talk about what I have in my collection that I love and will reach for instead. And that is going to be, oops, the Lightseers Tarot by Chris Ann Donnelly. Oh my gosh, I did back this deck. I'm so thrilled that I did. I think Chris Ann did a wonderful job of communicating throughout the campaign. I love this deck. I'm so glad I got the independent version with the really beautiful green edges and the really nice thick matte cardstock. This has been picked up by Hay House, I believe, and you can already pre-order the mass market version of this deck, which will have a thinner cardstock. It won't have the green edges, and it will have a much lighter version or smaller version of a book. I think it'll be like a little book that can fit inside its box. That's my guess. But I'm so happy that I picked up the Kickstarter version of this deck. I love the artwork. It's absolutely gorgeous. It's, woo, so amazing to read with intuitively. There's a bit of a body beautiful aesthetic you see throughout this deck, but I'm okay with that because it really reads sort of boho. It reads a little hippie, and it just seems really dreamy, and it speaks to spirit. I think that's what it is I've been trying to articulate about this deck. I feel like you see a lot of personal growth, a lot of psychology, and a lot of spirit in this deck. And I know that the artwork in the mass market version will be the same. With some, there's going to be a different card for the Ten of Swords, but everything else will be the same. And I just love the vivid colors. She did so much with the artwork in this deck, and I just feel like it's just, it speaks right to me. It's super easy to read with. This will be a go-to when I'm doing client readings because I do think that the artwork gives you so much to lean into. I love this Four of Swords. This was one of the reasons I backed this deck. And Chris Ann as a creator was so ethical, so transparent, and so communicative throughout the campaign. I just can't say enough good things. So this is what I reached for instead. The full-size guidebook is really, really nice. There's a lot in here, and I think that the smaller guidebook will still give you plenty to work with because the art is that dang good. So I wouldn't even hesitate. I may pick up the mass market copy as well, just so that I have a backup because I love this deck so much. Okay, and the other Kickstarter that I did not back but was kind of tempted was the Your Heart Knows the Way Oracle. Now, at the time I'm filming this, I'm actually not sure if that deck funded or not. I think that it did though. It looked absolutely beautiful. The campaign was really well put together. It looked like the artwork was finished. It was a little too dancer body art for me. I don't know why, but in that particular deck, it just didn't fully speak to me. But here's what I reach for instead. Heal Yourself reading cards by Ina Segal. I've talked about this deck before. This is a deck that is in my spiritual practice. I work with a card every full moon. I pull a new one to work with for a moon cycle, or sometimes I switch that out and do it on the dark moon. But this has got a really wonderful self-healing vibe, which the energy I got from the Kickstarter campaign of the Your Heart Knows the Way Oracle deck was similar. It seemed like it was really about leaning into love and working on yourself. And that's the energy I get from this deck. This deck is empowering in the way that it calls you out and asks you to look at some shadow stuff. The Your Heart Knows the Way deck looked a little bit lighter in its focus, but I just really love this one. And it's the one that my brain thought of when I was like, well, what would I reach for instead? And this is the one that came to mind. I love this. Look at the backs. This is another one that I might like to edge in gold at some point. We'll see if I ever get there. The book for this one is really, really quite good. This is a Rockpool Publishing deck. They always do a really good job. You get full-size images of the cards and a full page with a write-up, and there's always an action, which for any deck that I'm going to work with for healing, I really like there to be an action or healing process or a ritual or something you can, like, again, lean into as an action step. And that brings us to our very last category, which is out of print insanity. There are so many decks that are out of print that a part of me wishes I could get my hands on. I've talked about the Tarot of Delphi in the past, and I've talked about the Idiosyncra deck in the past. These will remain on my if I ever see them in a discount bin kind of list, because I would love to grab them. I just am not at this point willing to pay the price for them. The one I'm going to talk about today I'm a little gutted about, because if I was going to pay an out-of-print price for a deck, this is probably the one that would tempt me the most, and I definitely keep my eyes out in case I ever see a deck that it is for sale in my price range. You can, I believe, still get the Spanish version of this deck, and it is the Fairytale Tarot by Lisa Hunt. I don't remember who the author of the guidebook is, but Lisa Hunt is the artist of the artwork. This deck, I've watched flip throughs. I know I would love working with this deck. It's Fairytale, but it's not all like Grimm Brothers Fairytale. It's a little lighter, it looks like, in its approach. Most of the fairy tales that are pictured on the cards, if not all of them, are instantly recognizable, and so it gives you tons of layers to work with. I want it so bad. I want it so bad. I don't think I want it $300 US bad, but I want it pretty bad. So I'm trying to let it go because I've been watching on eBay for months and I haven't seen a copy for less than $300 US, which is like $450 Canadian at this point. So I'm like, it's not gonna happen, Lisa. It's just not gonna happen. So what I reach for instead and how I soothe my poor dreaming soul is with the Baba Studios Fairytale Tarot. This is also out of print and goes for stupid prices, but I was able to snag a copy at a more normal price briefly when there was a window to get a few of these. They put a few of these decks up. They had been incomplete. They were able to get the missing cards, complete them, and offer a few complete decks. I do use this deck specifically in a Fairytale Wisdom tarot reading that I offer to clients, where I pull a single card on their issue, I read the story, and we dive into some layers. I use it with the Fairytale Lenormand, which is by Lisa Hunt and has matching backs to the Fairytale Tarot, also by Lisa Hunt. Like the Fairytale Tarot, I'm gonna just tangent for a second. The Fairytale Tarot on the backs has a really beautiful key design, and the Fairytale Lenormand has a keyhole design that is like the exact same style. They literally are meant to work together. Where's the tarot deck? Bring it back into print. Publishers, somebody, offer Lisa Hunt lots of money. Bring this back into print, it will sell. Rant over. For now. I love this Baba Studios deck, but as much as I love it, it's not Baba Studios' normal artwork. So it's not the photo collage-y kind of artwork that they're most known for. It doesn't have the fancy cold stamping. It is beautiful, The tails are wonderful. The guidebook is wonderful. The problem I have with this deck is that I can't work with it without the guidebook. I have read through the guidebook cover to cover, so I've read all of the stories because there is an abridged version of the story for every single card in the guidebook. So Karen Mahoney did a stunning job on that. But a lot of these stories are ones that I just didn't grow up with. The Storyteller at Fault, great story. The Frog Prince, I know. The Snow Queen, I know. But Libusay, no. And what I like about this deck is it's a very grown-up fairy tale deck. It's definitely based on the more macabre versions of the fairy tales that come from the Arabian Nights, that come from the Grimm brothers, that come from Hans Christian Andersen. Some of them are really recognizable, like Sleeping Beauty for Four of Swords makes perfect sense. Some of them I have to read the book, like the 5 Wise Words of the Guru in the Hierophant card. Now, the meanings of the cards are beautifully represented by the stories selected. It's wonderful. It's just that I have to rely on the guidebook, and as I've said a bunch of times already in this anti-haul video, I don't like having to rely on a guidebook. It just, there's something about that that just bugs me. Now, after I've worked with this deck for many years, I might know all the stories really, really well, but I'm not in that place yet. Look, there's a sunbeam. That never happens. It's fall. There must be just the way the sun is coming. But anyways, this is beautiful, but I'll tell you, if I had the Lisa Hunt version, I suspect that it would be maybe possible that I would consider selling this deck, but maybe not though, because they're so different. I don't know, but until I can track down a copy of the Fairytale Tarot by Lisa Hunt with its guidebook in English, I'm definitely gonna hold this deck very close to my heart. I don't know why we don't have more Fairytale Tarot options, because I feel like it's just such a beautiful way to explore the tarot. Also, I hate tuck boxes. Can we just say? I hate tuck boxes. I might have to like ditch this one. I'm gonna have to like tuck this away with my other tarot boxes and just not use it because it's annoying me. There is another deck though coming out, which I think I mentioned in my previous anti-haul, but just in case I didn't, it's called the Forest of Enchantment Tarot. It's going to be out any day. I pre-ordered it quite some time ago. I'm very excited for that to come out. That has a very storybook feel. It's not based on any actual fairy tales, but the art and the images representing the tarot cards definitely has that very storybook kind of feel to it. So I'm really excited for that one to come out and to play with it, because that just might scratch the itch, but we will see. All right, folks, my laundry basket of decks is now empty. So that means we have come to the end of anti-haul number 3. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this entire journey. I would love to hear from you. What are some decks that you regret buying or that you've decided you're not gonna buy, and why? Tell us down below. Let's have a conversation. You can help other people save a little money and lean into what they've got. Don't forget to be kind to our creators. They put all of their heart and soul to make creations, and I have so much respect, as I always say, for anybody who puts their art out into the world. I think it's important when we're having discussions about what does and doesn't work for us to remember that this is all personal preference. It's all personal taste and the aesthetics that we're drawn to, and it's very rarely a statement on a creator, their art, their artistic vision, or what they're trying to accomplish. I have mad respect for all of the creators out there in the world. So I'm gonna close it off here. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. Remember to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me know if you do your own tarot tube anti-haul, and I will see y'all later. Bye!